U.S. Olympians named to our U.S. Olympic swim team. To my far left, Michael Andrew, and right next to me is Torri Huske. And so we will open it up to questions to the two new Olympians.
My question is for Michael. So what was the difference in going into your mindset going into the semifinal race last night versus tonight? Did you feel a little bit more pressure because there was a final and something was at stake? Like, what was the difference in your approach last night versus tonight?
Yeah, I mean, naturally there was a lot more pressure. I remember waking up this morning, and it's probably the first time I felt as nauseous as I was, really for anything. Going to the semis, I knew if I could just swim very similar to what I did in the morning with the little minor details, fix it up. But I got out of my lane, started to focus on what Nick was doing next to me, and taking that semifinal swim onto the finals, wanted to make those adjustments and be even worse. I'm grateful that I was able to get my hand on the wall first. Really, the Holy Spirit guided swim in that last couple meters, but there's a lot we can still be working on. I'm excited for the next month as we get ready for Tokyo.
Torri, you talked before about how you didn't want to think about this meet, the atmosphere, everything until you got here and you were able to shut everything out. How did that go once you got here? And just take me through the moment where you're standing there getting the medal tonight in front of everybody.
I feel like I kind of did the same thing even when I was here. When I first walked into the pool, so I watched wave 1 last week because some of my friends were there, and I thought to myself, like, oh my god, like, I'm gonna be so intimidated when I get there, and it looks so scary. But I walked in and I was like, okay, it's not that bad. Like, I was like preparing myself for like the worst. Like, I was preparing myself to be like really scared and intimidated when I walked in, and then I got here and I was like, okay, it's not that bad. And then I feel like once, like, even on like race day, I feel like I don't usually try to think about my swims until I'm warming up. And even then, I feel like I kind of just like block it out. But up until like 15 minutes before, when I'm in the ready room, I don't usually think about my swim that much. The medal ceremony was a little bit overwhelming for me. But I mean, it was still really fun.
Torri, Peggy Shin with TeamUSA.org. Congratulations. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the strength training you did in the last year. You said COVID kind of helped you. So specifically what you did, and if you think you would have made the Olympic team had you not done the strength training?
I don't know. I mean, you can never really say. I mean, I definitely would not have been as fast or I wouldn't have done as well as I did without it. I feel like COVID in a way was kind of a blessing, even though I tried to make the best out of it that I could, and I feel like the strength training made a big difference in my second 25 because I normally tend to just like fly and die. Like, I just go out hard and then I kind of just see how, like, if I can hold on. So I feel like it really helped my second 50.
Question for Michael. You did a really interesting podcast with Brett Hawk, and you talked about during lockdown or during last year at some point having the Sunday church lunches, developing connections with people outside the sport. Where do you think those people were watching this? Would they congregate? And could you expand on that idea of purpose as not being like, big accomplishments, but just the connectivity with others?
That's an amazing question. Thank you, Karen. So first of all, I know my group of friends in Oceanside from my rhythm church. They're all watching, and there's a rhythm house where all the boys live. And so I can picture them all just going crazy over this evening. Everybody's kind of dispersed, but it was like this last season was a huge blessing for me because it was a time that I could be a little bit away from swimming and focus on creating really deeper relationships, connections that went beyond just the superficial, like, oh, you're shooting for the Olympics, you're an athlete. And that was really special for me. It was nice to have that because it takes a lot of pressure off of the racing, knowing that it doesn't define who I am. And something recently that's kind of struck a chord with me, and this is 1 Corinthians 9, 24-27, and it speaks about everybody runs the race, but only one achieves the prize. And a lot of us, I get, as an athlete, we work really hard. We discipline our bodies for an outcome. This outcome is today, where we are now, and it's amazing, but it's perishable. And I think I can stand up on the blocks today and tomorrow, and the rest of my life, with a lot of freedom, knowing that it doesn't increase my worth or my value to my friends, my relationships with my family, and ultimately, with Jesus Christ. And it gives me a lot of freedom to just race and love what I do. So I'm very grateful to be here. Thank you.
Hey, Michael, your parents have been involved intimately in your career since day one all the way to now, and I know you got to share a moment with your dad in the coach's box and then your mom. Kind of what was that like? I mean, do you almost feel like it's, they're competing right there with you, and it seems a lot different than the typical swim parent type thing?
Yeah, we do have a very unique team. It's very much a team, and it's hard to kind of put into words. So we recently we just came out of a really hectic season, a really stressful season for our family, and it took a lot of stepping back and understanding what's the bigger picture, much like with our purpose, where we're speaking with Karen, and came to a point where our family, our team was about to separate, and a lot of it was because swimming was at the center, and that was our focus all around. And now we are able to be here as a family. My sister is here, she's my biggest supporter. She was crying the biggest crocodile tears, and I love to see that because, at a time I felt like I was going to be here, just me and my dad at trials. But we got our whole family back together, and it's a very special thing. And to be able to finish a race and run to them and get them love is, I feel very blessed.
A question for Torri. This is Dave Shinen from the Washington Post. Congratulations. You still have a busy week ahead of you, and I'm wondering if this punching your ticket for Tokyo feels like a weight lifted off of you, and does it change at all how you think and contemplate the rest of your week?
Not really. I feel like it does help me have more confidence for my other races. I'm trying not to get too high after this race, just because I feel like I won't be able to fall asleep at night otherwise. And I have I think 2 races tomorrow, but I'm trying to focus more on my other races now. I'm trying to kind of move on and start refocusing, but it hasn't really changed my mindset, I feel like.
She's young, she hasn't fatigued yet.
Hi Torri, Christine Brennan with USA Today right here. Congratulations. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about your heritage. And in here this week we have talked, had some questions of other people about swimming being a sport that is basically, white kids, right? And I'm curious, especially with the conversation in our country now about over issues involving Asians and Asian hate. I'm curious if you would want to speak maybe to that as well. I know that's a lot I'm throwing at you, but would love to hear your perspective and of course exactly what your heritage is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, my mom actually has a really cool story. She grew up in China, and she actually grew up in a labor camp in China. So after Mao Zedong died, and the colleges were closed for a really long time because they didn't want people to be super educated. So once they opened up again, she was 16, and she had to take this test to potentially get in, and she was competing against 30-year-olds just because they've been closed for so long. So it was really competitive getting in, but she's super smart. She ended up going to college at 16 in China, and later she moved to the US. She studied architecture in China, but she absolutely hated it. So later she studied engineering, and she actually studied at Virginia Tech. And she didn't really like engineering that much either. And then she became an IT person. And I feel like she's a really big inspiration to me. And I'm just lucky to have her.
Torri, can you talk a little bit about making this team and having Claire finish right behind you? There's been obviously a lot made of the young guns as you guys kind of creep up on the veteran swimmers here, and you guys really, proved something in that race. Do you get the sense of the feeling that that race is kind of the beginning for both of you?
Yeah, it was super exciting being next to her and Kelsey. Like, I always get so like hyped up whenever I race her, just because I know that she's gonna put on like a really good race. Yeah, I don't even remember like during the actual race. I feel like I vaguely remember seeing her off the turn, and I know that she's really good underwater. So I can remember trying to really work my underwaters, but I feel like the rest of it was just a blur. But I always get like the field here is just amazing, and I was just so happy to be there and to race these people.
Hey Torri, Megan Soyson from NBC. Just to kind of follow up on that a little bit, you mentioned racing Claire. What is your relationship or friendship with her? And you know, if there were to be anyone to make it to the Olympics with you, is that kind of like, do you like that because you guys have a bit of a history of racing together?
Yeah, I think it's so fun. I met her, I think at like a select camp. I don't know how old I was. And then I got to know her a little bit better in Budapest at Junior Worlds. And I really admire like her hard work and her dedication. I feel like she's really driven, and that's just like, those are just really admirable qualities. So I'm really excited to go with her to Tokyo.
Hi, Torri. Maggie Hendricks from Valley Sports. You know, you are one of the second teenager to make the team, and I was wondering kind of what your youth is bringing to your racing.
I mean, I don't really know. I feel like, I guess it helps me recover faster. I don't know. I don't really know about like my youth. I feel like I'm just kind of inexperienced. I don't know if that's like bad, but I feel like it's kind of new since I haven't experienced that much. It's kind of nice because everything is so new and still so like exciting. Just like being here at trials. This is my first trial, so it's kind of like overwhelming just to be here. I feel like the first day, I mean, we'll probably tell you, like, I could not focus during practice or during when we were warming up. Like, and my mind was like all over the place just because I was like so overwhelmed with like everything. But I feel like it's nice just being able to like experience something for the first time.
Hey Michael, Paul Newberry from Associated Press. Yeah, it's good to see you, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
A couple things you touched on: the disappointment of 2016 not making the team, and so what? How does that affect what this means to you to bounce back? And even having to wait an extra year to kind of make up for that. Is my first. I'll let you answer that, and then I've got to follow.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it didn't feel as much like a redemption swim. I think in 2016, I definitely came into it with the perspective that I'm very young. There was very much an outside chance that I make the team. I remember swimming really well. I came third or fourth to Josh Crino by 100, and I carried a lot of experience from that race. And then fast forward 5 years, I had become a short course world champ, won Pan Pac. So all this experience, I think, had led to this day, and it's built a greater vessel, a greater athlete. I think there's been a lot of maturity through it, and that's why even just with Torri, I'm so excited to see being her first trials, what you're going to go through the next 3 years into the next Olympics. Like, you're going to experience so much incredible highs and lows, and it's it makes me a much better athlete. So I'm stoked for you, but that's kind of where coming off of 2016 really just prepares me for where I'm at now, and it's a blessing.
And you mentioned what you've the unorthodox way that I probably remember seeing you 5 or 6, 7 years ago, and y'all made a commitment to kind of do things different. Does that kind of feel like, I don't know if redemption's the right word, but hey, everybody who questioned what you were doing and how your family was doing it and how everybody was involved, how does that feel now? And it sounds like particularly that y'all have been through some struggles here in the past year. So what does this kind of mean in that context?
It's surreal. I hate to, we grow up in an age where social media and the comment section is a very toxic place. And it's unfortunate because, there's no face to that, and people can say what they want without any consequences, and the athletes are the ones that read it, are the ones that kind of, it sits in their heads. And I've fallen culprit to that, you know. I used to internalize what was said on the blog sites, and you know, in a way, it feels great. Like I've vindicated myself. I'm like, yeah, I stick it to them. But I realize it doesn't change anything, and I think it's really important to focus on the positive voices and the voices that are speaking life into you. But it is really nice to now. I find it hard for people to say that the way we train and the things we do don't work, because we have, you know, officially made it on the biggest stage. Obviously, we have to continue to perform, and we live in a performance world, and that's great. Obviously, you're only as good as your last swim, but I'm excited for the opportunity to continue to prove that what we do is driven by love, purpose, and we've got a passion beyond just winning medals.
Hey Torri, David Reeder from Swimming World. Did you know that you had the capability of coming here and going 55s and making this kind of impact? And how did you know? And the follow-up to that is, have you considered what this means looking ahead to the Olympics at all?
I feel like I usually know what I'm capable of, but I don't know if I will necessarily go that time. I don't know if that like makes sense. I feel like most like in the past, like people have kind of like asked me like kind of like what I thought would happen and like stuff like that, and I usually try to like dodge those questions just because I don't like sharing that stuff specifically. But I feel like it's definitely like a good omen for like what's next. But yeah, I feel like, I mean, I was still kind of like surprised when I like saw the board, just because I feel like you don't know like what's gonna happen, you know, when you swim. But yeah. I thought maybe I would go 55. Yeah, but I wasn't sure, and I mean, I wasn't sure like with the new environment too. Like everything is just like so new if I would be able to do that. But I usually like the energy of like the crowd and just like the arena. Like you can just like feel it, and I feel like I usually swim better when there's a lot of like energy, and it's just I feel like when the pressure's like the more pressure there is, I feel like the better I do, which is kind of weird, but I don't know. I guess it is.
Good quality.
Right. Hey Torri, this is Lane Higgins from the Wall Street Journal, and one of the things that I think is so cool about trials is that you sort of have these people that you're racing against that you've maybe grown up looking up to, and all of a sudden you're on equal footing with them, and that, you know, you're on the Olympic team with people that, you know, maybe haven't punched their ticket quite yet, but that you've maybe been thinking about for a long time. So, you know, when it comes to how it feels to be, you know, on the same dais as Michael Andrew right now, and potentially on the same team as plenty of others, you know, what is that like? Does it feel like you deserve to be there?
I don't know. I feel like a lot of people have like been saying good job to me who are like really famous swimmers, and I'm kind of just like I don't know, like, you know who I am, like, that's kind of cool. But Lily King in the warm down pool after my race, she was like, are you gonna get the rings now, like, tattooed? And I was like, I don't really know. Like, I mean, I thought about it in the past, but I have no idea. But, and then also, apparently, Katie Ledecky, Greg said that she called my exact time that I would go, like, she predicted it before I swam, so I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, and I guess as a follow-up on that, I know we talked earlier about you being a little bit nervous in the warm-up pool of potentially being around Olympians, but, you know, do you think that you're going to start to be on the flip side of that, where people are going to be scared to swim in the same lane as you?
That's really weird to think about, because I feel like I'm not super scary, but I don't know, hopefully not.
Another question for Michael. There seems to be a storybook quality to this night for you. I mean, you meet Michael at 5, you then break all of his national age group records, and then when you make the team, he's in the building watching. Can you describe what that's like? There aren't very many people who have their, you know, one of their idols there on their big night, and also what it's like to communicate with him.
Yeah, it's an honor. So I got to see Michael in the warm down area earlier today. I think it was earlier today, and he was just greeting some of the Cal guys, and I got to go up and dap him up and say hi, and over the last couple weeks, he's been watching my races. He's been like following, maybe probably not just the last couple weeks, the last couple years, but it's been really cool that he's been intentional with reaching out to me and supporting me and like encouraging me where I'm at. And for me, it's not something I ever expected, but I'm just super grateful to know that, just much like Torri is, when the greatest of all time acknowledge that you are in a position to now carry the baton to represent the country that they've done so well in doing so, it's just a huge honor. And all respect to Phelps, he's a legend, and I can only do my best now.
Hey Michael, have you thought at all about the medley relay in Tokyo? There were a lot of questions about who the breaststroker for the U.S. would be to go up against Adam Peaty. What are your thoughts that you've had so far on that?
Yeah, it's 100% in the forefront of my mind. I know there's, for me, I'm I'm my worst critic, and so even after this swim, immediately I'm thinking, what did I do wrong? Why did I come back so slowly, et cetera, and how can I now fix this for Tokyo? And I believe the team will see that, and I'm excited to, hopefully I've earned my spot on that relay and continue to prove my worth in that spot. But I'm very excited to know that we do have a very strong relay, and we're going to take it to the Brits. As do they have a strong relay, but we'll let the swimming do the talking.
My question is for Torri. I'm Zachary Draves from Nuts and Bolts Sports. Michael alluded to earlier about what kept him grounded and what kept him centered this past year. Given everything that has happened this past year leading up to this moment, I'm just curious, what kept you grounded and what kept you centered and focused that led to this amazing accomplishment this evening?
I feel like my friends keep me grounded just because, they treat me like a normal person, and it's like, I couldn't have done this without them, I feel like, just because they're so supportive and I love them so much. And then what keeps me focused, I feel like my coach, my parents, and myself, I feel like I know my goals and I know what it's going to take to get there, so I guess my goals keep me focused.
Hi Michael, Nathan Fennell with the LA Times. You mentioned earlier that during a period you'd start to internalize some of those negative comments on social media and some of the criticism and whatnot. How did you get over that hump? How did you get to a better place with all of that?
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. So initially in the beginning, I felt like I would internalize it and use it as motivation to work harder, kind of in training and things like that. Like, oh, Bilbo Baggins 349, I'm gonna prove you wrong type of thing. And what happened is the more you focus on the negative and the more you focus on the negative, the more it starts to show up in the light when you train. And I realized I had to stop doing that. And so as I matured, it's still very hard. I still love to read SwimSwam comments and look at all that stuff. But I realized there's got to be a time where I completely switch it off. And I do the same with social media, and even coming into this now, it's like I can finally follow people back. But I decided to shut myself off completely from it, because if it's there, if it's accessible, human nature is going to want to watch. And it's want to see when I read it, and I realized I just have to understand that it's not healthy for me. And the best way to fight it is just to avoid it altogether. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. Thank you.
Michael, since Adam's name came up, how do you process that your reward for what you did tonight is to go up against a person who's gone a second faster than the rest of the world?
Ouch, Karen. Thank you. No, Adam's a friend of mine. I've raced with him so many times. He's an incredible athlete, greatest of all time, and he's proved it over and over. And the plan now is just to etch away at his name and to get closer and take it one race at a time. I feel like going into it thinking I'm going to go there just to clobber at him, that's not the right mentality. I think I need to focus on myself. And even my performance this evening is kind of a reflection of that, understanding that I didn't swim my own race this evening. I was fortunate to take a win, but I know I'm capable of so much more. And now we're going to train that and get ready, because come head to head with Adam, he's going to be out quick and he's going to come home quick. His tempo's much higher than mine. You know, I have a very long, weird stroke, and so I got to be super focused on me, but I know he'll be there.
All right, Michael, we've talked about just all the distractions, the comments, the social media, all this kind of stuff, and the doubters. But for you personally, take me through this, just through you, not your team, not your family, not just how has this process of this, kind of unorthodox training, how did it start? How did you get sold on it early, and how do you feel about this kind of moment of validation for yourself?
Yeah, that's a load. So, I mean, I could write a book on that question alone. It's hard to speak about in terms of what I feel, because it's always been a we effort. From the beginning, it was my family and my parents that discovered Dr. Brent Russell's science of USRPT, became USRPT in 2011. We implemented the training, and we've morphed it a bit to kind of what we feel works. The science is still there. The application is specificity. We don't lift weights. We don't do anything outside of the pool, really. It's all pace, all speed, creating neural pathways so that, in theory, we can come to the race and it just happens naturally. And for me as an athlete, I was fortunate to grow up on a club team. I did that for a season, and quickly, my dad swam as well, and he realized there's got to be another way to do this. And so we sought out as a family, and there was always buy-in, but I feel like the buy-in individually came in later as I developed and became a little smarter. So I wasn't always the smartest kid, and to train and believe fully in your training methodology is vital when it comes to being an elite athlete, and so I'm fortunate to be in that position. Yeah. Thank you.
Great, thank you all for joining.